Thank you for joining me on this Monday. I begin with Eric Trump, Executive Vice President of the Trump Organization. He is the author of a brand new book, Under Siege, My Family's Fight to Save Our Nation. I've posted the link over at X so you can pre-order Under Siege. Eric, welcome. I want to know first, I understand you're donating portions of the proceeds from Under Siege to Turning Point USA. What was your relationship with Charlie and why are you doing that?
Listen, Hugh, Charlie was a great man. I met him when he was 21 years old. He came into the Trump Organization. He told me all the plans that he had for Turning Point, and man, did that guy ever, make them materialize. We hear about a lot of BS in our lives and, a lot of lofty goals and aspirations, and he did every single one of them, and he did it better. And listen, the whole book, Under Siege, the whole concept is exactly what they've tried to do to my father, what they've tried to do to me, what they've tried to do to the MAGA movement. They've tried to kill us. They've tried to bankrupt us. They've tried to censor our voice. They've tried to gag order us. They stripped us off of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. They debanked us. They deplatformed us. They impeached my father twice. They went after his Supreme Court justices, as you know. They raided our homes. They tried to take him off the ballot in Colorado. They tried to take him off the ballot in Maine. Literally everything that they could to try and take down my father. They weaponized the FBI. They weaponized the Justice Department. I got, 112 subpoenas. Every AG case, every DA case, Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, they put our family under siege. And then when that didn't work, they tried to kill my father, not once, but twice, not only in Butler, Pennsylvania, but also in Palm Beach County. And then they tried to kill, they tried to kill Steve Scalise. They tried to kill Kavanaugh, and then they did kill Charlie Kirk. And so, why donate proceeds of this book? Because I never want any conservative to get off that stage. We have to be on that stage. We have to be willing to fight, and I'm damn committed to doing that, and I'm damn committed to making sure that everybody, the great people at Turning Point, continue to be able to do that.
Now, Eric Trump, I'm going to walk through some of the things I expect to see in Under Siege. I am curious at the beginning, though, why relive this? This has been a nightmare since he won in 2016. The establishment has been coming after him and your family. Why sit down and write a book about it?
Because I think it's got the greatest ending of all. And Hugh, that is the fact that we won, right? The fact that against unthinkable odds, we won. It's the law of unintended consequences. They thought by putting me in a courtroom every day, by putting my father in a courtroom, by sending me so many subpoenas, I lost track of them, by trying to bankrupt our family, by trying to censor us and laugh at us and weaponize the entire mainstream media against us, that, my father would say, this isn't worth it. I'm not going to do this again. And they were wrong. They were wrong. It was a law of unintended consequences where America saw through the sham. There was only so many times you could, cry wolf. And frankly, everything they did to torture us, the American people saw, and we won the greatest political victory of all time. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote. We won 11 extra counties in California. We won Miami-Dade by 11 points, a county that hasn't gone Republican in 37 years, and every single state in the nation tacked further to the right. And so it was the greatest victory of all times against all unthinkable odds. And so I think it's actually a very inspirational book and inspirational theme. And the story had to be told, especially the behind-the-scenes story. Every one of the stories, every one of the interactions with my father, every one of the, the attacks that no one saw, that weren't reported in the news, how we got through them, what they tried to do, and how we ultimately triumphed.
Now, Eric, I retired from the practice of law in 2016, so I'm not practicing anymore. One of my last partners was Robert O'Brien, so you know that we charged a little bit. Can you give me some sense of how much you personally had to spend on lawyer bills?
Well, that's a great irony, right? For all these sound bites coming from, the far left, Trump, quote unquote, profits off of government. We probably spent $400 million in legal bills to protect ourselves from absolute shams. I was the guy, Hugh, that got the call from the FBI, from the New York Times and the Washington Post saying, hey, I hear you have secret servers in the basement of Trump Tower communicating directly with the Kremlin. I go, excuse me? Secret servers where? First of all, we don't have any servers in basements because basements flood. Second of all, we're largely a cloud-based computing company. And yet, and you reported on it better than anybody, Hugh, every day for, 3 years? They pitted the two greatest nuclear superpowers against each other so some greedy woman could get an extra couple of votes. They knew it was a sham. And despite that, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars protecting ourselves, protecting our employees for something that was totally made up. It was made up and paid for by Hillary Clinton. And so
I will
that's a
want you
great
to come
irony.
back after I've had a chance to read every line in Under Siege, but I want to start on January 6, 2017. That's when FBI Director Comey, CIA Director Brennan, the head of the DNI, James Clapper, and then Mike Rogers of the NSA came to Trump Tower. Comey asked to speak with your father alone. I think it was an ambush. I think it was planned from the start. Do you agree with me?
It was absolutely an ambush. Hugh, I mean, just back to kind of Russiagate for a second. They knew day one that there was no Russia collusion. I mean, they knew that there was no servers in Trump Tower. They know that there was no communication with the Kremlin, and yet they perpetuated it for 3 years in order to hurt my father. They all lied. All of those same, characters, including Garland, lied. When they raided Mar-a-Lago, they said it was done on behalf of, the National Archives. Give me a break. It wasn't done on behalf of the National Archives. Later on, it became very clear that Biden actually approved the raid at Mar-a-Lago, right? And so it was always a lie. They were doing anything they could to get my father. They wanted my father in prison. They wanted me in prison. They wanted our company gone. And we've won every single lawsuit ever since. But, I mean, Comey was a crooked cop. There's no question about him. He is the worst of law enforcement in this country. The FBI is the greatest, institution. And by the way, if there's one thing that you learn from the Charlie Kirk assassination is how good the FBI can be. They found the guy in 31 hours, 32 hours. Whereas under my father's under Biden, they spent more time raiding Mar-a-Lago. I was the guy that got the call when they raided Mar-a-Lago, where one of my guys tells me that there's 30 people at the gate and they're demanding that Mar-a-Lago turn off all of its security cameras. And I go, I'm not turning off my security cameras. I've got no legal obligation. Why am I turning off my security cameras? And then we find out, Hugh, as you know better than anyone, that they were planting, classified folders all over my father's office, laying them on the ground, doing little photo shoots, after they raided Barron's room, after they raided Melania's room. This was the siege. Try and impeach him, try and bankrupt him, try and kill him, try and get his family, try and get him divorced, try and humiliate him, try and get his kids to turn on him, go after his employees, make his life absolutely hell. And when that didn't work, as I said before, that's when they tried to kill him in Butler, and that's when they tried to kill him in Palm Beach. It's unthinkable what they did, and America can never relive what we dealt with as a family. Again,
I want
the
to go
good
back
news
to
behind all of this.
To the ambush.
The good news is we won.
That Comey orchestrated. As soon as Comey left the office, he had a special assistant by the name of Josh Campbell, who works for CNN now. Josh Campbell wrote a book in which he said, quote, "Once safely back in the car, I immediately handed Comey the secure laptop. Comey didn't say a thing the first time we'd ever climb into a vehicle without exchanging words, but began typing. He paused ever so often to stare out the window as we navigated the city, and he went back to writing. After about 20 minutes, he followed through, following a thorough proofread. He handed me the computer, pointing to the place on the screen where I should begin reading. I was now learning Comey's version of a meeting that would spell the beginning and the end of his career, and one that would mark the start of a veritable hurricane, a torrent of attacks on the rule of law that would risk threatening the viability of our national institutions of justice." I almost laughed when I read that, but I do like the idea that his special assistant confirms he got in the car and started making up a story. Do you think he's going to be convicted?
I do. I mean, Hugh, one of the great ironies of everything that Comey's gone through over the last couple of days is no one's focused on the fact that the FBI director, listen, a guy that's supposed to be keeping, terrorists from running planes into buildings like we saw happen on 9/11, somebody that's supposed to be keeping our home front safe from unthinkable amounts of threats that we have, both foreign and domestic, is literally taking the time to leak damaging things about Donald Trump to the New York Times. Like, I can safely say that everybody watching the show, including you and I, would actually much rather have the FBI protecting our home front and protecting our nation and protecting our citizens, than playing these political sham games. And I saw it all the time. One of the stories I tell about in Under Siege is I got called down to FBI headquarters in New York. And Eric, we'd like to brief you on a threat to the company. So I go down there. No one knows about it, Hugh. I get there. There's a cyber threat against, the company coming from, Iran. But you can't tell anybody. You can't tell anybody you were here. You can't tell anybody you were ever here. Literally, Hugh, I am leaving the parking garage. A friend of mine from ABC News calls me. Eric, what were you doing down in FBI headquarters?
Oh,
I
my
have no
goodness.
idea what you're talking. I have no idea what you're talking about, John. He's like, I know you're down there right now. I go, John, I have no idea what you're talking about. I had signed my life away. I had done everything. Eric, don't BS me. I know exactly where you are. John, I have no idea what you're talking about. How would you even know? Because the FBI called and told me.
Your father has had 2 special counsels appointed against him pursuant to 28 CFR 600.1. Do you want a special counsel to investigate Merrick Garland and the conduct of the Department of Justice in waging lawfare against your father and your family?
There's no question. I mean, Merrick Garland raided our home, as we talked about before the break. Merrick Garland was bitter that he didn't get the Supreme Court job, and he did everything he could to make my father's life absolutely hell, and that of our family. Frankly, I'd love a special counsel to investigate the auto pen as well. I mean, another great scandal of our time that the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about, but you know, it was signing executive orders every day for a president of the United States who wasn't fully functional, who wasn't there, who wasn't.
Oh, he was nominating judges who he didn't know their names. I would love to see a special counsel. What kind of a special counsel? You don't want a Jack Smith. You want a real lawyer, don't you?
I mean, how about somebody who's just, you know, not doing this for weaponization, as they were clearly doing to my father? I mean, there was nothing there. I mean, there was nothing there in Russiagate. There was nothing there in the Boxes hoax, and they lost both of those. But you know, I think everybody realizes that Biden didn't have his faculties, right? I mean, it doesn't take. And by the way, the entire mainstream media realizes that, and they threw him out in an embarrassing fashion. They had the greatest coup in the history of politics, where, you know, Kamala happened to get every single Democratic delegate in what, a period of 24 hours. I mean, you know, you couldn't have orchestrated that better in the history of the world. But you know, Hugh, yeah, I want real accountability. And I think America needs real
Pam Bondi
accountability.
works for your dad. Your father can order the Attorney General to appoint a special counsel pursuant to 28 CFR 600.1. Will you recommend that he do that?
Listen, Hugh, you know, I love it. It's not my job to recommend, you know, that kind of stuff. I run the Trump Organization. I stay the hell out of Washington, D.C. I've never been more proud to stand on that stage for a 12-year period of time. And you know that there's no one that fought as hard as I did other than my father. I was there next to him every second, every single day, giving thousands of speeches, hundreds of media appearances. You know, listen, it's not my job to recommend special counsels, but, you know, I think this country wants accountability. I think they see a one-way street in this nation. I mean, even as it pertains to Comey, you see all these Democrats, oh, this is illegal lawfare. I'm like, what about when they came into Mar-a-Lago? What about the multiple impeachments? What about when they raided Melania's closet? What about the 112 subpoenas that I got for, you know, as a guy who's never gotten so much as a speeding ticket in my entire life, because they wanted to destroy our family, they wanted to destroy our legacy, you know, and so, listen, I think they need to face justice.
Well, then pass along for me. I'm a DOJ alum. I work for Bill Smith and Ed Meese. I think we need a special counsel to find out what Merrick Garland was doing, because when we come back from break, I'm going to ask you about Jack Smith and Fani Willis and Alvin Bragg and Merchan and the other crazy judges. This nightmare has to be unpacked by a serious lawyer who doesn't have a partisan bone in their body, but will go after it as a matter of justice. Eric Trump, his brand new book, is coming out, Under Siege, on October 14th. Eric, some names in your quick reaction. Jack Smith.
Jack Smith, I mean, planted documents at Mar-a-Lago. He was an absolute phony, and, you know, him, like all the others, we beat in court, and I'm very proud of that.
Fani Willis.
Well, Fani and her boyfriend, you know, Nathan, that case didn't work out too well for them. They dug so deep that they ended up finding themselves, which is always a great irony. That kind of reminds me of Hillary Clinton, but yeah, they dug so deep they found themselves.
Alvin Bragg.
Well, Alvin Bragg's he's a crook. We also beat Alvin Bragg, as you know. All those charges were ultimately, you know, kind of, you know, set by the side. But Alvin Bragg was a bad guy. I mean, here's a guy who promised to not prosecute, you know, white-collar crimes and this and that, and released half the people, you know, out of Rikers Island, and all of a sudden he's going after my father for $130,000 and shutting down New York for how many months on end was that? 4 months. He shut down all of Lower Manhattan at a cost of hundreds of millions of dollars.
Now, you drew the two judges that may be the worst judge. I practiced law for 30 years. The two worst judges I've ever seen are Juan Merchan and Arthur Engoron. What do you make of both of them?
Well, Merchan was conflicted and just a bad guy who was assigned every Trump case, whether it be Alan Weisselberg or if it was Steve Bannon or my father. His daughter worked for the Democratic Party. You know, doing apparently email solicitations. He should have been recused. He should have been thrown out. And Gore, and I was in front of him, might have been the dumbest guy I've ever seen in my entire life. He worked for the Democratic Party. It's just that simple. I mean, it was a case that I was front and center in. A $560 million verdict against Trump for never missing a payment. Never, when every one of our banks went in and said that Trump is the greatest lender that they've ever had, that, we had never violated a loan covenant, that we had never missed a payment, that we had made the banks hundreds of millions of dollars, and yet he values Mar-a-Lago at $18 million and ends up, finding us $560 million, which the appellate court of New York just threw out about a week ago in a 5-0 decision, including the presiding judge of New York. So Gorin's another hack. He's another, in my
Judge
opinion.
Bozo and Judge Bozo. I want to switch completely. You're a land developer. You're good at it. I've seen your golf courses. Are you in charge of finding where your father's presidential library is going to be?
I very well may, Hugh. I am. And I think I've got the greatest site in the world. I can't quite tell you where it is and what it is right now, but it's going to be announced very soon. And I can tell you this will not be Barack Obama's library, where the thing looks like a jail in the middle of Chicago that costs about $4 billion and looks like hell. It's like literally scaring the residents of Chicago. They're all laughing at the thing. This will be the most beautiful building our country's ever seen, and it will be the greatest monument to a former president in the history of our nation.
Now, Eric, I built the Nixon Library for President Nixon in 1989 and 90, and I went back and ran it once when they needed some supervision. They're very difficult with land use authorities, so you got to pick the right land use authorities. Are you confident of your land use authorities before you go in there? And you're going to need a lot of land because there's going to be a lot of parking, and it's going to be a big building.
Hugh, the one thing you don't need to worry about with that is I do that stuff a lot better than I even do politics. So, yeah, our land use is going to be perfect. The building's immaculate. The initial designs, I can't wait to show the world. But it's good as it comes anywhere on Earth, this building. And listen, it's a testament to a father that I love. It's a shrine to, I think, somebody who's going to go down as the greatest president in the history of our nation, somebody who dealt with the unthinkable, beat the unthinkable, beat the deep state, beat the mainstream media that's just corrupt as hell. And honestly, I'm gonna turn it into the greatest museum in history, and I'm so proud of it, and I'm so proud of him. I love him, and I love being a part of this for him.
Are you fully aware that the National Archives Record Administration hates Republicans? They do good deals for Democrats and terrible deals for Republicans. Are you aware of that?
Well, offline, you and I share a couple of the same good friends, and I know the people over there very well, and yes, I do, and hopefully that's being cleaned up like the rest of the swamp right now. But yes, they've done everything they can. NARA's done everything they can to sabotage Republicans over the years, and I can promise you that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen again. I will assure you of that. I am all over it, and I understand the pitfalls of that organization as well as any, and I will not fall into them.
All right, completely unrelated to anything else. I've asked your father about this a couple of times. He became friends with my old boss, Richard Nixon, when RN moved back to New York in 1980. Did you ever meet RN?
I don't know if I ever met RN.
Do you think your father and he share some things in common? They couldn't be more different in terms of their background, but they're both resilient as can be.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And by the way, even what they tried to do to the Nixon Library, I know the inside story there, where they tried to hijack it and they tried to make the entire thing about Watergate, and they tried to delete effectively, the guy's entire life and entire history. And yeah, listen, Hugh, I understand the games very, very well, and I think it's going to be very hard for them to rewrite Donald Trump's history, especially now. I mean, this is the greatest presidency I think we've ever seen. My father's throwing so much lead in the air that they can't catch it. They can't counter narrative it. The media is weak. The media is ineffective. The people don't trust the media in this country anymore. They love Donald Trump. He won in a spectacular fashion. And, I think he is fully writing his own history right now, and I'm very proud of him for that.
Now, last two questions. Victor Davis Hanson, maybe the country's greatest historian and classicist, just finished a 150,000-word manuscript on your father. Is your father cooperating with any biographer, and do you want him to?
Listen, I think the more than and I obviously I know Victor very well. He's a brilliant man and a great person, and somebody I've sat with several times, and somebody I have immense respect for, and by the way, somebody that gets it. I mean, somebody who's just been a voice of reason through so much of this. So I can't wait to read it, but I think he should. At the same time, Hugh, you know how many political hacks that are going to be out there that are going to get paid by one of the publishers to write, kind of, crap stories about my father. How many of those have we seen over the last, 10-year period of time? People who weren't involved, who otherwise attest to the fact that they were involved, who, make a couple bucks writing some, bad, poorly written manuscript. And I can tell you that won't be the case for, for Victor. So I can't really
last
wait
question.
to read it.
Your dad is by far the most accessible president, far more than anyone else. I mean, by an order of magnitude, exponentially so. Does that worry you in an age of spiraling violence? Charlie was available too. The Mormon church was open this weekend. All sorts of crazy people are running around this country. Are you worried about that?
Absolutely, I'm worried about it. Absolutely. I mean, I was one on Sean Hannity's show that said 6 weeks before, the Butler attempt that I worry that they've tried everything and they'll stop at nothing. And so they're going to resort to physical violence. I got killed for saying that, but I meant it with my heart and soul. And then 6 weeks later, you see what happened. So, yeah, listen, my father's the biggest target of the world. And frankly, we are as a family. I very much worry about his safety. There's no one I love more. And, you pray that Secret Service has their act together. And I know many of the great men and women. They're phenomenal. You can't allow another
bonus
Butler
question
to
then.
happen.
Have you talked to Director Patel about Thomas Crooks? We don't know anything about Thomas Crooks. I can't believe we don't know anything about Thomas Crooks.
I can't tell you how much it pisses me off as a son, right? My father said he's at ease. I'm not at ease. I'm not at ease. We know more about every single grandmother who walked into the Capitol on January 6th than we know about Thomas Crooks, than we know about, frankly, either of the shooters, either obviously, Butler or Palm Beach. I'm not satisfied at all. They somehow got into every phone of every person who walked into the Capitol, but they can't get into this guy's multiple phones. I call BS. I want to know the truth. This entire country wants to know the truth, and I spent a lot of time talking about exactly that in Under Siege.
Have you talked to Patel about it? The director is the one that can make that happen.
Yeah, I know Cash very well, and I think he'll ultimately get to the bottom of it.
Eric Trump, thank you for the half hour. I look forward to talking to you once I've had a chance to read Under Siege. Under Siege can be pre-ordered at Amazon right now. It's going to sell and sell and sell because I think one of the Trumps is finally going to open up and tell us what they think. Eric Trump, thank you. The American Exploration and Production Council is one of our sponsors, and you can remember them by axpc.org. The American Exploration and Production Council. That's going to be hard for the Steelers fans. They're going to write AEP. No, it's AXPC.org because they're saying X for exploration. American Exploration and Production Council, AXPC.org. We need energy dominance. We can have energy dominance. We have to permit the exploration of and production of America's oil, gas, natural gas, all kinds of energy, geothermal, whatever makes sense, all of the above requires permitting. And that requires reform of the nation's laws passed in the 1970s that have become cudgels to shut down exploration development across the United States. We need to cut bureaucracy, and we need to keep our environmental safeguards, and AXPC.org is fully devoted to that. Stakes could not be higher. Our energy and our economic dominance, our energy dominance depend on it. See the plan on how to make permitting sane again at axpc.org. Now it's time for me to take my relief factor. Got 10 in on Saturday because I was working off stress. The Guardians had not seized their place in the playoffs until late Saturday night after the Astros lost to the Angels. And then they won yesterday, classic Guardians style. They scored 9 runs or 10 runs against the Rangers, including Brian Rocchio hit a 3-run walk-off in the bottom of the 10th. Remarkable game. But they won the Central Division. Historic. The division format came in 1969, so that means 57 years ago. And in 57 years, the previous record for a comeback was the Yankees caught up with the Red Sox in 1978, having been 14 games behind. The Guards were 15 and a half games behind the Detroit Tigers. And they won the division. So tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, if Thursday is necessary, the Guardians play the Tigers in Cleveland. The Guardians are going to start Gavin Williams and Tanner Bybee. Scooball's going to start the first game, and he's a killer. But Gavin Williams is pretty much a killer, too. And I may be a little moody Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I already warned Dwayne. The ball game will be on out of sight. Maybe the sound will be on the background a little bit in the studio because it starts at 1:08. My show starts at 3:06. I'd like to beat them in 2 hours twice and then move on to beat the Mariners, which is a bigger task. But just warning you. So I got my relief factor, and I got my 10 miles in Saturday for stress. I got my 6 miles in today to work off the Brown stress. I'll tell you what. My voice is a little bit hoarse because I was yelling at the Browns yesterday. I was yelling at the Guardians Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But it'll be fine after a couple of days. And I carry in curcumin, resveratrol, omega. 10 miles is nothing. 6 miles is nothing. It's like election day. When the Guardians are in the playoffs, doesn't happen very often with the Browns, but the Guardians have been in 8 out of 14 seasons, I think, maybe out of 12. Then you got to walk off a lot of the excess energy. But I love afternoon games. I love a 1 o'clock start. Hammy, thank you. Called a great game yesterday. And if you're an Indians fan, Guardians fan, I'm going to do that a lot. Muscle memory. I got nothing against the Guardians' name. I got some friends who tweak me, and they always be the Indians to me. And yeah. I root for the club. I'm from northeastern Ohio. I root for the club. All I care about is that they win. World Series. Now, Ashbrook of the fellas over at Ruthless, he's a Reds fan. So if they want to bring the Reds to Cleveland, I'm all for an I-71 series. But in the meantime, get your Relief Factor. ReliefFactor.com, $19.95 for a 3-week starter pack. All you have to do is call 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, 1-800-4-RELIEF, or go to their website and find the starter pack for $19.95, less than $1 a day, at ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com. The reason I take it on the air is so that you see me do it and you hear me tell you about it. More than 12 years I've been taking it. I don't do commercials on TV or anything like that. I like to show you on the Salem News Channel, or if you're listening on the Salem Radio Network or one of our great affiliates, I am taking it every day because it really does work. Dr. Oren is next. Don't go anywhere. We'll find out about the 21-point peace plan and what he thinks about it. President Trump made some comments about it on his way out the door today. That's coming up on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Ambassador Michael Oren represented the state of Israel to the United States for many years. He is now Dr. Michael Oren. He's with every institute you can imagine. Dr. Oren, welcome. Happy New Year to you, and looking ahead, a blessed Yom Kippur. Can I play for you 30 seconds of the president today at the White House? Here we go.
If accepted by Hamas, this proposal calls for the release of all remaining hostages immediately, but in no case more than 72 hours.
All right, so Michael, if that's the case, I'm all for it. I don't think that's going to happen. What do you think?
Well, let me say a couple of things before. I know you're not going to get any pushback from this, but tremendous credit is owed to the President of the United States, to his diplomatic staff, to Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, Ari Lightstone, and others for forging an historic agreement. That's one. Two, Israel just won the war. Israel just won the war. It is not quite a Mount Suribachi moment, but something close to it. Why? Israel had won the war over Hezbollah in Lebanon, over Iran. And the big question, what was going to happen in Gaza? So what happened now is the president and Netanyahu have maneuvered Hamas into a corner. And it's not just the United States and Israel, it's regional actors as well, and saying to Hamas, either you surrender and give up your guns and end this war, or Israel's going to get a green light and go ahead and kill you. And that's really where we are right now. So I agree with you. Hamas, it's in its DNA, is a jihadist organization. A jihadist organization prefers death to surrender. They prefer martyrdom. Martyrdom is what they're about. They are a death cult. Right? The chances that they are going to take a pledge, by the way, the 20 points called for Hamas members to take a pledge that they will eschew terror and they will basically accept the peace process. I'd like to see that happen. Will it happen? I share your incredulity, to say the least. But in any case, it's a historic document and a great diplomatic achievement. And one
No,
way or the
what
other,
I can say
this
is
war is going to end.
it's a good thing that Hamas heard the President of the United States say, all the hostages within 72 hours, that's the first step. There's no misunderstanding that. No one can get that wrong.
Yeah, they will, though. Yeah, but they will. Here's what's going to happen. Hamas is going to say, we accept it, but we have some questions. We want to discuss it. And then they're going to say, and they've already started to say this, Hugh, we don't know where all the hostages are. We don't have X, Y, and Z. And the big question is, will the president play along with this? Will the president say, no, listen, you've got 24 hours to make a decision, and you've got 24 hours to come up with all the hostages on that list, and period, or Israel gets the green light?
I do not believe the president is one to be played, and I don't believe he's going to accept this. And so they have a very short window of time. Where do you understand the offensive to be in Gaza City, Michael? Have they made it to the hospital?
Oh yeah, we've made significant inroads. Again, it's all because of the hostages and because of the civilian population that the IDF cannot proceed as it did in previous wars into Gaza. This will be the third time that Israel has captured or conquered Gaza, 1956 and 1967. And those operations took about a day and a half. We could do the same thing today if it weren't for the civilian population and for the hostages. So there's made significant progress, but the army is saying it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. And you want to be able to press this army, but by pressing the army, you're going to cause more Palestinian civilian casualties, more Israeli military casualties, and of course the casualties among the hostages.
Now, Israel is obliged not to attack Qatar again. There's probably ambiguity in there as to how they attack Qatar or the people in Qatar. How do you read that segment of the agreement?
I think it was necessary. I think if Israel had succeeded in eliminating the five heads of Hamas, I think we would have had a different outcome. It didn't happen. Mistakes of intelligence. Military intelligence is often an oxymoron, and this is a classic case. And so, it's not the first time Israel has tried to eliminate leaders of Hamas and has not succeeded and had to go out and apologize. Israel had to apologize to Jordan for trying to eliminate Khalid Mashal back in 1996, and even going back to the early 70s, where Mossad agents taking vengeance for the Munich massacres in 1972 killed a Moroccan waiter by accident, thinking he was a Palestinian terrorist. It happens. It happens. It's tragic. It happens. It's important that Israel, that Prime Minister Netanyahu apparently called the ruler of Qatar, apologized. It's fine.
Okay, so if you're a Hamas leader, to the extent they have any left, what are your options right now? How do you view it? Try and put yourself in their slippers.
So what the Hamas, they're not like you and me, Hugh. They don't think about in terms of days, weeks, and months. They think in terms of decades and centuries. And they think, how am I going to be remembered by young Muslims, not just throughout the Muslim world today, but in decades and centuries to come? Will I be remembered as the great martyr who held my ground until the last minute? Or will I be remembered as the coward who ran away from Gaza with tail between the legs at the gunpoint of the Jews? And that is going to be a big decision for them. Unless there's some face-saving...
Aren't they going to be remembered as stupid? They have destroyed all of Gaza. They killed 1,200 Israelis. They've killed 450 soldiers, or maybe it's up to 500 now. They have 20 hostages living in 30 bodies. Don't they get remembered as utterly stupid?
No, absolutely on the contrary. Everything you just listed, the massacre of 1,200 Israelis, the destruction of Gaza, the hostages, in their universe, those are all immense accomplishments. Hamas loves rubble. Rubble is the building blocks, if you would, of their identity. They're victims. They're perennial victims. They love death. All they need to do is to emerge from their tunnels and go like this, and they won the war. For Israel to win the war, we actually have to win the war. For Hamas to win the war, they have only not to lose. And they want that iconic image of standing on the rubble and going like this. They've made several images like that. You can find them online.
But the president denied that to them today, didn't they?
They love all of that.
But did Donald Trump deny them that opportunity today?
Well, they'd have to find a way that they leave Gaza. They go to some other country, to Algeria. I was from a rough neighborhood in New Jersey. I think they should send them there. They know how to deal with them. And then when they're there, they will say, well, listen, we really won the war. We were forced out by Qatar. We had no choice. Something like that. But I think that's an unlikely scenario. I wouldn't rule it out entirely, and I hope I'm wrong. But Israel just won the war. Israel just won the war.
I know. I think you're right. When I heard the president say that, I said, game over. Hamas gets nothing. Over. Michael Oren, a good Yom Kippur to you. Dr. Michael Oren on XDR. Michael Oren, follow him. One of our great sponsors is back. Webroot, Total Protection. Go to webroot.com/Hewitt. You'll get 50% off. 50% off Webroot Total Protection is more than a good deal. It is essential. That's why they call it Webroot Essentials when you go to webroot.com/Hewitt. Live a better digital life. Let me tell you what you get. There's an all-in-one product with plan options for individuals. You can get 1 identity and 5 devices, or up to 10 identities and 10 devices. You get real-time antivirus protection against emerging threats like malware, ransomware, phishing scams. You get firewalls and a network monitor. You get Web Threat Shield, which detects and blocks malicious websites before you visit them. Works with Edge, works with Chrome, works with Firefox. You get a password manager to protect your logins and your passwords. System optimizer to delete traces of online activity. Identity protection. Family protection includes toddlers, students, seniors, 65 and other dependents. Up to $1 million in expense reimbursement for stolen funds and out-of-pocket costs. Advanced dark web monitoring. That matters a great deal because the dark web is where the nasty stuff happens. Identity monitoring with identity, health, status updates. VPN backup and more. The VPN works for 5 or 10 devices. You get protection in real-time antivirus protection against emerging threats. Don't wait another day. Go to webroot.com/Hewitt. Get 50% off Webroot Total Protection or 50% off Webroot Essentials. Live a better digital life with Webroot. Let me also save you money by getting you to look at your cell phone bill. Consumer Cellular sponsors my program. There are a lot of cellular companies out there. If you were watching the NFL yesterday, you saw 5, 6, 7. Which ones to use? Pick the cheapest one. They all have great service, right? You don't have to sacrifice savings for service. You get all great service. You get savings without sacrifice. Takes about 20 minutes to switch. You can keep your phone, keep your numbers, keep your data if you want, get all new if you want. You also get $25 extra off if you use my code HUGH25. It's $5 off each of your first 5 monthly invoices. Call 1-800-411-4454, 1-800-411-4454, or log on to consumercellular.com/Hugh. The promo code is HUGH25. Don't forget that, HUGH25. And the phone number is 800-411-4454. I was listening to Buckeye Talk today. Stephen Means, a fabulous reporter, but he always gives the phone number for their text messaging service so fast, and he gives it once. I just got to get to him once and say, Stephen, slow down 3 times. 800-411-4454. Use my code HUGH25. 800-411-4454. Use my code HUGH25. Do I need to say it again? Call 1-800-411-4454. And remember, HUGH25. Also remember, tomorrow at 1:08, Cleveland Guardians take on the Detroit Tigers at Progressive Field in Cleveland. Dwayne's very excited. Guardians are in the playoffs. They won the Central Division, and everyone in Cleveland knows. And by the way, I'm on in Cincinnati. Congratulations, Reds. We'll kill you we'll myrtleize you if we get you in the World Series. We absolutely will myrtleize you if we get you in the World Series. Now, what I want to do is listen to what President Trump had to say today, and that is cut number 9.
So this is a big, big day, a beautiful day, potentially one of the great days ever in civilization. Things that have been going on for hundreds of years and thousands of years. We're going to At least we're at a minimum very, very close, and I think we're beyond very close. And I want to thank Bibi for really getting in there and doing a job. We've worked well together, as we have with many other countries, both of us, with many other countries, which is the only way this whole situation gets solved. And I'm not just talking about Gaza. Gaza is one thing, but we're talking about much beyond Gaza. The whole deal, everything getting solved. It's called peace in the Middle East. So today is a historic day for peace, and Prime Minister Netanyahu and I have just concluded an important meeting on many vital issues, including Iran, trade, the expansion of the Abraham Accords, and most importantly, we discussed how to end the war in Gaza, but it's just a part of the bigger picture, which is peace in the Middle East. And let's call it eternal peace in the Middle East. So this is far more than anybody expected, but the level of support that I've had from the nations in the Middle East and surrounding Israel and neighbors of Israel has been incredible, incredible. Every single one of them.
Okay, cut number 10.
This afternoon, after extensive consultation with our friends and partners throughout the region, I'm formally releasing our principles for peace, which people have really liked, I must say. And these are done not just routinely done, these are done with total consideration and working with the nations that we're talking about. All of these nations have made contributions to those suggestions. I want to thank the leaders of many Arab and Muslim nations for their tremendous support in developing the proposal, along with many of our allies in Europe. Europe has been very much involved, and as I was called by many of the European leaders, most of them saying, is this true? Are you really doing peace in the Middle East? This is the most incredible thing we've heard. Some think it's the biggest thing they've ever heard. They called just to find out, was it just a rumor or is it actually done? And then they said, have you spoken to the Arab leaders? Have you spoken to all of the other leaders that we have to get? A lot of people involved in this one. I also want to thank Prime Minister Netanyahu for agreeing to the plan and for trusting that if we work together, we can bring an end to the death and destruction that we've seen for so many years, decades, even centuries, and begin a new chapter of security, peace, and prosperity for the entire region. And I want to just say that my meetings and dialogue that we had with so many countries, Saudi Arabia as an example, the king is a phenomenal person. The Emir of Qatar, he's an incredible people. UAE, and that's MBZ and ABZ. We're totally involved. These are the people that we've been dealing with and who've been actually very much involved in this negotiation, giving us ideas, things they can live with, things they can't live with. Pretty complex. I mean, after 2,000, 3,000 years, whatever it is, I guess it's got to be a little complex, or it would have been done a long time ago. The King of Jordan was with us, as you know, in the United Nations. The President of Turkey, President Erdogan, is a friend of mine, a strong man, but a good man. President of Indonesia, somebody who's an amazing leader, Prabowo. He is an amazing leader and respected by everybody. He was in the room with us. We were together with most of these people that I'm mentioning. Others were by phone or the next day. The Prime Minister and the Field Marshal of Pakistan, they were with us right from the beginning. Incredible. In fact, they just put out a statement that they fully believe in this pact. It just came out just as I was walking around. They said, sir, you have a big notice from the Prime Minister of Pakistan and from the Field Marshal that they back this 100%. President El-Sisi of Egypt, who's terrific. And these are people I've gotten to know over the years. I mean, I would say it started around 2015 and then went into 2016 when the presidency officially began. But I've known him actually for a long time, and there are many cases really great men. I can't say in all cases, but I will tell you in many cases they're great men, and some great women too.
Cut one more cut. This is a long one. Cut number 12.
To ensure the success of this effort, my plan calls for the creation of a new international oversight body, the Board of Peace, we call it, the Board of Peace, sort of a beautiful name, the Board of Peace, which will be headed, not at my request, believe me, I'm very busy, but we have to make sure this works. The leaders of the Arab world and Israel and everybody involved asked me to do this, so it would be headed by a gentleman known as President Donald J. Trump of the United States. That's what I want, is some extra work to do, but it's so important that I'm willing to do it, and we'll do it right, and we're going to put leaders from other countries on, and leaders that are very distinguished leaders, and we'll have a board, and one of the people that wants to be on the board is the UK former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, good man, very good man, and some others, and they'll be named over the next few days, and it'll be quite the board. Working, everybody wants to be on it now. I don't know if that had anything to do. They named me and everybody else wanted to be on it. I guess they figure, well, he's a soft touch. He'll be easy to deal with. Working with the World Bank and others, it will be responsible for recruiting and training a new government that will be made up of Palestinians along with highly qualified experts from all around the world. Hamas and other terrorist factions will play no role in the board, but they'll play no role in the governance of Gaza at all, directly or indirectly. As you know, thousands of Hamas leaders have been killed and soldiers have been killed. And we can never forget October 7th, but thousands have paid the price for that.
I think that the president's remarks today, very well received by everyone. Netanyahu said, yeah, we accept. Let's wait and see what Hamas does. Michael Oren, who was not given to champagne and bubbly talk, said, the war's over, we won. Because Donald Trump has backed them 100% to the hilt. I think it's fabulous. I think it's terrific. I am very, very pleased. Now, what about the government shutdown? I am the least worried person in the world about the government shutdown because Democrats are doing this. It will inconvenience a lot of people. It's all on them. There's a clean CR sitting there to keep it open. Carolyn Levitt on Fox and Friends this morning, cut number 6.
Let me be very clear about the president and the White House's position. All we are asking for is a common sense, clean funding resolution, a continuing resolution to keep the government open. This is a bill that keeps the government funded at the exact same levels as today, just adjusted for inflation. So there is zero good reason for the Democrats to vote against this, especially when the Democrats have voted for this 13 previous times as recently as March. And so this is the reasonable and common sense thing to do. The president is giving Democrat leadership one last chance to be reasonable, to come to the White House today to try to talk about this. And now is not the time to try to...
Carolyn, they're not going to be reasonable, but we do have to get to the most important soundbite of the weekend. Cut number 1.
The 1-2 pitch. Swung on and blasted. Deep to right. Down the line. Off the pole. Can you believe it? A 3-run walk-off home run off the foul pole and right. Brian Rocchio circling the bases, now getting mobbed.
They had a little bit of a celebration. Wayne's so excited about this because the games are going to be on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 1 o'clock. I come on at 3. My moods may vary. Don't go anywhere, America, because the Guardians are here to play. Coming up, Red Sox fan Senator Tom Cotton, who unfortunately going to lose the Yankees in 3 games. Senator Tom Cotton is from Arkansas. But sadly, when he was at Harvard and Harvard Law School, he was captured by the Red Sox net, and they brainwash you. And you become a Red Sox fan, but the Red Sox did the Guardians a solid this weekend, so I won't be too hard on him. I won't tell him that it's 2 games left in the Red Sox season. How are you, Senator?
Hugh, I'm doing well. Once again, you're spreading fake news. I actually started rooting for the Sox when I lived on a farm in Arkansas in the mid-'80s, and we didn't have cable to watch the Braves and the Cubs every day, so we got lots of games of the week for the Red Sox. But I would assume, yes, that you would be extraordinarily grateful that the Sox beat the Tigers twice this weekend to allow your team, the Guardians, to, I think, set the Major League record for the most games down to come back to win a division or before divisions win a league. 15 and a half games in July, if I recall.
Yes, it is. It's quite a remarkable thing. All we need is 2 starters to get 2 good games, Gavin Williams and Tanner Bybee. But Scooball's pretty good. Who's starting for the Red Sox? I don't know who their lineup is.
They have the sure-to-be Cy Young winner, Garrett Crochet, starting tomorrow night in Yankee Stadium.
And have they got a second pitcher?
Brian Bayo starting game 2, who's emerged as a solid number 2 pitcher. Unfortunately, they just announced that the number 3 pitcher, Lucas Giolito, is out with elbow problems. So if there were going to be a game 3, it would hurt. But since they're going to win in 2, it won't matter, right?
That's what I keep saying. It's going to be great. But, you know, the baseball gods want an I-71 series. And John Huston wants an I-71 series. You're going to have to sit on both sides of the park, go to both parks. That's what we need. We need the Reds and the Indians, Guardians, in a I-71 series. Senator, let's talk about this shutdown. There isn't anybody in the country who doesn't blame the Democrats for this. I really don't believe there isn't anyone that's stupid. Why are they doing it?
Schumer is about to shut down the government because he's scared of a girl in New York City. Her name is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and he fears that she will primary him 4 years from now in 2028 if he doesn't do the far left bidding. If you recall, Hugh, in March, as we were on the verge of another Schumer shutdown, he caved and voted to keep the government open and gave all kinds of backflipping explanations for why he was not doing what the left demanded, and he got massive blowback from his left and from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And he's been fearful of her and of this vote ever since. So he's apparently about to lead his caucus over the cliff and shut down the government because he doesn't want Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to run against him in 4 years.
Well, that's not going to work because she's either going to run for president or against him. Let me ask you, during the time that the government shuts down because of the Schumer shutdown, does the Senate continue to work on judicial nominations, appropriations bill? Do you still continue to work?
You raise a good point, yes. If Chuck Schumer shuts down the government, the Senate will stay in session. Mike Johnson has already said the House will not be in session this week, as they should not be, because the House has done its work. They should be in their districts explaining the Schumer shutdown to their voters. The Senate, however, I suspect will stay here through the weekend and for as long as it takes. And as long as we're twiddling our thumbs with the Schumer shutdown in effect, that'll just give us more hours and more days to confirm more judges for the president's nominees. And although I don't want to see a shutdown, that would be one happy side effect. We would welcome the opportunity to confirm more of those judges at a time when we would otherwise be out of session for the Jewish holy day of Yom Kippur.
Now, Senator, I just had Eric Trump on, and I asked Eric if he would like to see a special counsel appointed to investigate Merrick Garland and the lawfare. And he said yes, and the auto pen. Now, I believe Judge Cannon was correct that you can't just pick someone. You have to pick someone who's been through the advice and consent process. But if Donald Trump wants a special counsel and asks Pam Bondi to do it and get someone who's qualified, would you be in favor of that? Because there's a whole bunch of stuff that makes me uneasy as a former DOJ guy.
I think there's still many rocks to unturn from the Biden era, and you mentioned just one, Hugh, is the auto pen scandal of pardons by the thousands. And we still don't know if Joe Biden personally and wittingly approved of all those pardons. Now, I've never been a big fan of special counsel, just like I wasn't a fan of the independent counsel before the special counsel replaced it. For the reasons you cite, Hugh, I think we need to have democratically accountable officials exercising the law enforcement power of the United States. And I have total confidence in Pam Bondi and anyone she appoints from within the Department of Justice or who has been confirmed, say, as a U.S. attorney. This is something that's happened in the past. You take a U.S. attorney who is otherwise, remote from the problem, like take them from Arkansas, take them from Iowa, take them from Montana, and you have them investigate one of these problems. And I do believe it needs to be someone who has been appointed with legal authority under traditional channels, so we have democratic accountability in our law enforcement.
Yeah, I think the Cannon opinion was correct. Not many Democrats want to acknowledge that she was smart, but it does require an advice and consent person. But there are a lot of U.S. attorneys who could do this, whether it's Judge Jeanine or anybody else. Then they get to hire their own staff, and that staff operates only with reports to Pam Bondi. And there are a lot of people to investigate, not just James Comey, but a lot of people, because the nightmare that was DOJ from 2021 to 2025 is not yet fully understood, including where did these judges come from? I don't think Joe Biden was picking them, do you?
Again, Hugh, I think there's a lot to be investigated, especially as it relates to Joe Biden personally and wittingly exercising his constitutional authorities.
All right, last question, Senator, in terms of what the president announced today on a deal for Gaza. Number one part of the deal is all hostages released within 72 hours. Michael Oren just said Israel won the war. Do you agree?
Israel's certainly on the way to winning the war, and if they could get all hostages out, which is what President Trump called for today, and ensure that Hamas is either destroyed or eliminated entirely from Gaza, for instance, the plan calls to allow safe passage to a third country, then I don't think there's any question that Israel will have completed its victory in Gaza. But there'll be no end to this war as long as Hamas remains in any position of authority in Gaza or any hostages remain in Gaza.
Well said, Senator, and thank you. I look forward to talking to you. By the way, the Guardians game's tomorrow at 1, Wednesday at 1, and Thursday at 1. So you may want to schedule your lunch breaks around that. Thank you, Senator Tom Cotton.
Thank you.
Relief Factor is a sponsor of our studio. I have been yelling at the TV a lot this weekend, so I'm a little bit hoarse. Relief Factor does not do anything for being hoarse. But I did get my 10 miles in on Saturday, got my 6 miles in this morning, and I feel great. That's the only way to deal with stress. It's the only way to deal with the need to sleep well, get up early, get to work, get stuff done. The only way to do it is Relief Factor. Icarian and curcumin and resveratrol omega. They are the 4 natural ingredients that come in each pack of Relief Factor. When you call 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, 1-800-4-RELIEF, you can order the starter pack for $19.95. That's less than $1 a day. And you can also do that at their website. The starter pack is at their website at relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Only supplement I've taken for more than 20 years. I've taken it for 12 years in a row. Take it every single day. It really does work. Trust me on this. Try Relief Factor if you have minor aches and pains.
Again and blast it! Deep to right! Down the line! Off the pole! Can you believe it? A 3-run
I just finished
walk-off
a
home.
column for Fox News that'll be running in the morning. Fetching Mrs. Hewitt has put up with 148 or 7 seasons, I couldn't quite figure it out, of Cleveland baseball, football, and basketball. 148. There has been one ring in those 148 seasons. And so she's used to my mood swings in playoff time. She's ready. She's very glad the games are at 1 o'clock because when they're going to play the Mariners next, if they win 2 out of 3 from the Tigers, those will be middle of the night games, and I don't know what I'm going to do. But I'm looking forward to this a lot. Cleveland fans, let's open the phone, Harley, by the way. You can call if you're from Cleveland. 1-800-520-1234. Terry Pluto is going to open up hour number 3 with me, the Dean of Cleveland Sports Writers, because he's been covering the Indians as long as I've been cheering for him. He took a year off to cover the O's and Earl Weaver. I think he did minor league ball for 1 year. He gets a book out of this. It's a remarkable, remarkable season. A lot of vicissitude, a lot of disappointment, a lot of ridiculous good luck, a lot of head down, keep going. Steve Vogt, or Voter as they call him in Cleveland, replaced Tito Francona 2 years ago. I think he's going to win Manager of the Year for the second year in a row. Remarkable to be able to follow a superstar like Tito and get to the playoffs 2 years in a row. All right, J.D. Vance was on Fox News yesterday with Martha McCullum talking about the details of the TikTok sale. Cut number 2.
No, I'm not worried about that because the way that we've set up this deal from a national security perspective is that it's the American investors and the American business people who will make the determination about what's actually happening with TikTok. So at the end of the day, I believe that north of 80% of the company will be owned by the American investors and their partners. This is not something where the Chinese or any Chinese entity has a large stake at the table. The board seats, there will be 7 board seats at the company. 6 of them will be controlled by the American investors and their partners. So I feel very confident that we have successfully separated this company from TikTok Global and actually made it so that we can control people's data security. We can ensure that the algorithm is not being used as a propaganda tool by a foreign government, and that fundamentally we allow people to access this tool and this application that a lot of Americans love. It was a very difficult balance to strike, but I think we've done it successfully. And of course, we're going to keep working on it, Martha. The important thing about this deal is the United States still has the ability to review the terms of the transaction and review the national security implications of the new entity, not just over the next 100 days, but over the next many years.
Yep.
I think that is great if that comes true. If it's out of the hands of the CCP, I don't care how many dance videos you watch. Now I want to go up to the tragedy in Michigan yesterday. A lone actor, not an agent, a lone actor attacked an LDS stake and havoc. At least 2 people that were worshiping there are dead. The stake is burned to the ground. FBI Special Agent in Charge Reuben Coleman said this, cut number 7.
As I mentioned yesterday, the FBI is investigating this as an act of targeted violence, and we are continuing to work to determine a motive.
They're going to have to find the guy's social media. Is he crazy, or did he have an ideological extremism and antipathy towards the LDS? I don't know. Cut number 8 is the ATF Special Agent in Charge, Jim Deere.
Offer my deepest sympathy and condolences to this community and to the families affected by this tragedy, this horrific act of violence. There is no place in our society for this. There's absolutely no place. But it's become all too common, and as we know, we have become more and more desensitized. This community is hurting, and we are here to help them heal.
Everyone says the same thing after every tragedy. I don't put this in the category yet of Charlie Kirk, the attack on the Catholic Church, which was by an ideologue, the attack on the Christian school by an ideologue. I tend to put it in the insanity bucket, but I am open to anything. I have made a conclusion. No one has yet. We don't know anything, but we'll continue to follow the story.
The 1-2 pitch. Swung on and blasted. Deep to right. Down the line. Off the pole. Can you believe it?
And there go the Cleveland Guardians winning the American League Central Division with a walk-off in the 10th inning yesterday. I'm sure Vic Mattis, weekend editor at the Free Beacon and co-host of the Getting Hammered podcast, was watching every minute of that, weren't you, Vic?
No, Hugh, actually, I was not watching that. My team is the beloved Nats, but they're only about 30 games behind first place. So I think they still have a shot.
The Guardians were only 15 and a half back in July, and they crawled their way back. It's one of the great baseball stories ever. I think there's a book in it. Vic, do you ever commission reviews for the Free Beacon Weekend edition of sports books?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And in fact, one of our writers, politics editor Zach Kessel, is working on a book review right now, a book about baseball. And the name of the book is slipping my mind, but it just came out, and it's basically If I Were Commissioner. And it was written by a lady, and it's supposed to be a terrific book. And I'm looking forward to his review of that. And it'll be just in time for October.
Did you watch the Ryder Cup?
Yes, I did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
That you gave over. You watched the Ryder Cup, where we got blown out in days 1 and 2 instead of the Guardians.
I didn't. Well, actually, Hugh, to be honest, I was earlier watching the Commanders, and that was a horrible thing to experience because they're missing their star quarterback, which always happens to Washington. And so I flipped over, and I knew that they were way behind, but I wanted to see how they were doing anyway over at Bethpage Black. And I witnessed what could have been one of the greatest comebacks of all time. But I definitely give them the A for effort. I mean, it was tough. I mean, there was no way they were going to even things out there. But there was just a brief moment of hope, and that's what we like in things like the Ryder Cup. So the Europeans keep the title. That's fine. There'll be another time.
Vic, I missed the Commanders' quarterback injury. What happened to Daniels?
It was a head injury. So I'm not quite sure what kind of a head injury it was. It was not necessarily... Probably part of it was a concussion, but it was something a little bit more serious. You worry about anything that involves a potential fracture, obviously neck, head. He is week by week. So Mariota is the quarterback at the moment. And it's showing because we're just a couple steps behind with receivers and whatnot. And it was a tough game against the Falcons. So they have their work cut out for them, but I do hope that Jaden Daniels is up for playing the next week.
Oh, Vic, you're a Jersey guy. I would have had you pegged for a Jets fan.
Well, no, it's very funny. On the Jersey Shore, the state is divided really into two parts, Eagles or Giants. Every now and then there was a tiny minority that would talk about the Jets, but you were either Eagles or Giants fans, and we were mostly leaning on the Giants, but that didn't really get to me until I started my first year at Georgetown, and it was the last year that the then Washington Redskins won the Super Bowl in the winter of 1992, and I got on that Skins bandwagon, and much to my regret ever since.
All right, now let me turn to the serious stuff. I'm sure everyone is poised at the edge of their desk to write shutdown stories. You probably can't even get them to leave the office. They're so tense. How is it in the newsroom as the shutdown looms?
We're watching it with an eye open to that. We're also watching with an eye open to what's happening with the Middle East, as you know, Hugh, with Netanyahu meeting with Trump and pushing for a deal that requires the release of all the hostages. So we're keeping an eye on a lot of things. Regarding the shutdown, it's kind of rare for us on the right to sort of sit back and watch the meltdown happen on the left. Usually when these shutdowns happen, Republicans get the blame. I remember very well when I was at the Weekly Standard in the 1990s, the late 90s, and Republican shutdowns. And of course, the Republicans were to blame. And all those stories in the news media about hardworking Americans wanting to go on vacation and the Washington Monument is closed. They can't go to the top of the Washington Monument, and it's all Newt Gingrich's fault or whoever's fault. In this case, the shoe's on the other foot. And there's no other way for them to cut it, because on the one hand, if Schumer decides that we don't want to shut the government down, it's in the best interest for federal workers and people who are being threatened with getting laid off or perhaps fired, and Trump has all these plans for them, then you want to help out those people. If they do that, then his left flank is up in arms, and he suffers and experiences this internal revolt regarding why aren't we spending trillions more dollars in help or, trans surgeries for minors or whatever else, everything on that, wish list of the far left. And as you know, Schumer is facing a very serious threat from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
So, Vic, yesterday I'm watching the Guardians. I'm watching the Browns get hammered. I'm keeping an eye on the Ryder Cup. And all of a sudden, someone attacks a Mormon church in Michigan. And that's an odd target. There is a considerably deep strain of anti-LDS bigotry in the United States. What do you make of this?
That one was a surprise for me. I mean, we knew that there was a lot going on in the realm of political violence, even way before the murder of Charlie Kirk. Every time we go to a church, I think that sometimes it crosses your mind, is there going to be a disruption? I tend not to think of a disruption being violent like this. And for me, I found this to be very surprising. You talk about, I mean, obviously the death of Charlie Kirk happened in Utah, of all places, which is, the home to the Latter-day Saints. But it did surprise me that this would happen in Michigan with a veteran who clearly, as far as I understand, suffered from PTSD. I don't know the full story, what the motivation is about this, but it is definitely, I think the administration is saying it is, the motivation was political, so we'll have to see. But it is awful because it went so far as to not only murder people, children and the elderly, but to burn the church down. And props go out to local law enforcement. I think it only took them about 8 minutes to respond to this crisis.
I don't know how to classify this, and we won't know for a long time. But I asked Eric Trump in the first hour, do we know enough about Thomas Crooks? And he went off. He said, absolutely not. It's crazy not to know about Thomas Crooks. You agree with that?
100%. You think about some of these other mass shootings that took place, the one that took place in Tennessee, in a manifesto that the American public is not allowed to look at. And the same thing with the Crooks affair. It's very bizarre. I put it right up there with the Las Vegas shootings. There's so many things we don't know about. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I have concerns, and we need to know more.
I agree. Victorino Mattis on X. Read him at the Free Beacon. Listen to the Getting Hammered episode. There was a new one last week, which I did go back and listen to. Vic, Getting Hammered, wherever podcasts are available, and the Free Beacon. Eric Schmidt is a senator from Missouri who was on Fox News this weekend talking about the looming Schumer shutdown, cut number 3.
Their plan is to spend an additional $1 trillion to restore all the things that we rescinded, like Guatemalan sex changes and DEI in Burma. They want all that back, and they want health care for illegal immigrants. That's what they're fighting for. But again, they want to be perceived as the resistance more than a party that's willing to govern. And this is the time, I think, where we come together, fund the government, give us time to continue to work on appropriations bills. But the ball really is in their court. The Republicans are pretty unified here, and this is something, again, that Democrats have advocated for in the past.
And then we have Mike Johnson, cut number 4, the speaker on with Jake Tapper.
There is nothing partisan about this continuing resolution. Nothing. We didn't add a single partisan priority or policy writer at all. We're operating completely in good faith to give more time. The only thing that would gut health care, using his own phraseology there, is if we took Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer's demand here, because they want to cut $50 billion from rural hospitals. That's the new fund that we added in the big, beautiful bill, the Working Families Tax Cuts that we passed just a couple months ago. They want to gut that. They also want to hold up all this funding that I listed. I mean, the WIC program is something that we all champion for women, infants, and children nutrition. That would be held up. So it's exactly the opposite of what Hakeem is talking about. The Obamacare subsidies is a policy debate that has to be determined by the end of the year, December 30th, not right now, while we're simply trying to keep the government open so we can have all these debates.
And then finally, John Thune. Leader Thune was on Meet the Press with Kristen Welker, cut number 5.
All right, let's talk about the big battle over government funding. We're just 2 days away, Leader, as you know, from a potential government shutdown. The president did cancel a planned meeting with Democratic leaders. The House doesn't plan to be in session until after the shutdown deadline. Is the government going to shut down this week, Leader Thune?
Totally up to the Democrats. The ball is in their court. There is a bill sitting at the desk in the Senate right now. We could pick it up today and pass it. That has been passed by the House, that will be signed into law by the president to keep the government open. So this decision, in my judgment, at this point in time, is up to a handful of Democrats. We need 8 Democrats to pass it through the Senate, something that 13 times, when the Democrats had the majority over the last 4 years and President Biden was in the White House, Republicans helped Democrats do. 13 different times we did continuing resolutions in the Democrat majority, and in every case they passed. And what the Democrats have done here is take the federal government as a hostage, and for that matter, by extension, the American people, to try and get a whole laundry list of things that they want, that special interest groups on the far left are pushing them to accomplish, and using a 7-week funding resolution, which is designed to give us time to do the normal appropriations process. They're using this hostage to try and get all these other things done. It's a very straightforward argument in my mind. It's simple.
It is very straightforward. Democrats are shutting down the government. That might affect you, I don't know, but it's the Democrats who are doing it.
The 2000, excuse me, that's the 1914 Braves. I covered them, Hugh. It was a rowdy bunch.
Terry,
Well, really,
I have a number of comments. Number one, I don't want Austin Hedges to ever retire. I love watching Hedges. I know I can hit more than Hedges can, but I don't ever want him to retire. Do you?
No, because you certainly can't catch like he can. And if you notice, in some of the biggest games they have, they put Hedges behind the plate, especially with the young pitchers, to kind of guide him through it. But the remarkable thing is on August 24th, so that's like 6 weeks before the end of the season, the Guardians were still 12 and a half games behind the Tigers, who then went into a massive, epic collapse, and the Guardians went on even more of an epic winning streak, and they came down to these last games this weekend, and they won one game with the bases loaded. Oh, and there's Brian Rocchio hitting a home run on the last day of the season off the foul pole. They were down by 3 runs, and everybody's running out of the dugout, and they're celebrating. And, you know, Hugh, it's just so much fun when a team is an underdog team. And, you know,
it is.
Always
now, your wife, Roberta, she likes Rocchio and Kwan, right? They were her two guys. And so she's got to be in 7. The fetching Mrs. Hewitt does not care for sports. So she's put up with 148 seasons since we started courting, one of which has resulted in a ring. Roberta is a saint because she's lived your life with you, and you actually have to go to these games. I can turn them off. Tell me about her reaction to this comeback.
Well, she, first of all, I mean, she follows them. She didn't know anything about sports until we started dating and got married. But she would go to spring training with me and watch there, and then she would just kind of watch a guy. And one was Stephen Kwan, who's become a 2-time All-Star and that. And another was Brian Rocchio. And at the time we saw them, they were just minor league guys. And she would just say, oh, I like that guy. I like this guy. So the great thing there is maybe they ought to hire in a scouting department, because some of the guys I were on, names like Owen Miller, if you don't know Owen Miller's name, there's a reason.
Oh, yeah.
Take it.
Yeah.
So that's been a lot of fun. So she's enjoyed it, but she doesn't watch every inning or anything like that. She reads just about all of my stories before they go in, and she's got the rosters cross-checking, because that's one thing about the internet age. There aren't as many editors as there once were. And but she knows her stuff. We've been married 48 years. Now, do you think
the 1995 Tribe will be back in the stadium on Tuesday?
I wish they would be in the lineup, that's for sure.
I know, Tommy. Can we get Tommy and Albert Bell?
Yeah, please. I mean, any of those guys. This is, you know, I started calling them, you know, the little team that could around August when they started to play well, like the little engine that could, because nobody believed that could happen. They could climb the hill. A guy sent me in, Jim Tomrowski sent me, this one of the readers sent me a thing called them the Cardiac Kids, you know, because Cleveland had the Cardiac Kids back in 1980. I thought that was pretty clever. And we're having a lot of fun with this, Hugh. I mean, this is the classic. Nobody thought this was going to happen. And the way it happened has been so remarkable. They won one big game when the guy got hit by a pitch with the bases loaded. It was kind of like, I'm thinking, well, they can't hit. Maybe they can get hit with the ball at the right time.
I was explaining that to my wife at dinner last night, and I said that's never happened in the history of baseball, that a postseason position was clinched by a hit batsman. You made a comment about Parker Messick, which I can't forget. You compared him to Mickey Lolich. Now, I got friends in Detroit that I went to high school with. They were down here for 4 years in Warren. They went back to Detroit. He's gone radio silent because I think he's depressed. But he would laugh. We laughed at Mickey Lolich, you know, the classic, I'm not an athlete, I'm a baseball player. Does Parker Messick really look like Mickey Lolich?
Yeah. I mean, he's listed at like 6'1" and 225 pounds, and it's kind of around the middle. He pitches like Mickey Lolich. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Lolich was really good. He was borderline Hall of Fame. But he's this left-hander who works the corner, seems to know what he's doing. He's from Winter Haven, which is where the tribe old Cleveland Indians used to train. And he was my guy in this spring training that before he pitched in big leagues. I really liked him. So at least finally.
Well, I'm very optimistic about the future. I'm very optimistic about Steve Vogt. I'm praying for a Tito Vogt series, which would be just the baseball gods smiling on America. But when you
by the way,
recorded,
go ahead. You mentioned Terry Francona. I'm going to ask you this: how do you feel about the Mets missing the playoffs yet again?
You know, Governor Christie talks to me whenever he's not mad at me, and we talk about the Lindor deal. And I think we won the Lindor deal. We won the deal for Savali for Manzardo, and we've lost some deals. But I think we won the Lindor deal. What do you think?
Well, first of all, if they'd have paid Lindor, they couldn't have paid anybody else. So that's correct.
True.
But this is an interesting thing. Lindor, since he went, took $341 million to go to the Mets. That was in 2021. The Mets have made the playoffs twice. In the meantime, the Guardians have been winning their division in 3 of the last 4 years with Jose Ramirez, who I think actually is a better player than Lindor. The Lindor is terrific. And with about half the payroll and all that. So you
cannot talk enough about Jose Ramirez on Cherry Talkin'. And again, I recommend everyone. It's at Apple iTunes, at Spotify, wherever you get it. Terry knows more about sports. Will forget more about sports than you know. And Dave Campbell is sneaky smart on hockey and a few other things. I mean, really sneaky smart. It's the two smart guys sitting around talking about Cleveland sports. Terry, it'll be Gavin Williams and Tanner Bybee. Am I right about number 1 and number 2 on tomorrow and Wednesday?
Number 2. And
who would be 3 if we need a third game?
I'm guessing it would probably be Robert Parker Messick or Cantillo. 2 guys, you don't know their names, they're rookies. So that's what they would be going
I'm hoping it's Messick. And who did you make a guess at who the unsung hero is, if there is an unsung hero?
All right, unsung hero. Well, I mean, he's well known in Cleveland, but I'm going to go with, I mean, not just Jose Ramirez, but Stephen Kwan. That's Roberto's guy. Furthermore, he's got a career like 340 batting average in the postseason.
Don't you always walk him if there's any trouble at all and he comes to the plate late in the game?
Well, you always walk Jose Ramirez. You walk Jose Ramirez. But totally. Stephen Kwan's a leadoff guy, so maybe not. But he's had some big hits. And if you watch the games, he is not good. He is a great, perhaps the best defensive left fielder I've ever seen. I mean, he's a guy, he was a 5th-round pick by the Guardians out of Oregon State. That was his only Division I offer. And as he told me, he said he had to fight the imposter syndrome because he's like 5'9", Asian, doesn't look like a ball player, sure plays like one.
And I want to make sure in the minute we have left, I want to put a nail in the coffin that the Dolans aren't good owners. The Dolans are great owners. They have figured out how to be a small market club up against the Mets and the Dodgers. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, they have had in the last 13 years, they've had 11 winning seasons. They've been to the playoffs 7 times. It's hard to match that. And it's not just baseball's not just decided on how much money you spend. It often is decided maybe how well you pick your players and how well they play.
And Antonetti and John Hart, and I'm forgetting the guy, Shapiro, and now they got Chertoff. They've got great guys in the front office. They had Tito, and now they got Vogt. And they got Terry Pluto covering them, and Jimmy Watkins coming up, and Dave Campbell. And Hoynesy, I think, coined the team streak moniker, which I like as well. Terry, I hope we talk next Monday about the Mariners series ahead. Thank you, friend. Terry Pluto on X. Go listen to Terry's Talkin'. It's a break from all the politics. Enjoy baseball. Enjoy sports. And when it comes to basketball, there's nobody better. And he puts up with the Browns just like I do. Glenn Youngkin is the governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. He's my governor. And I invited him today. Good morning, afternoon, Governor. How are you?
I'm doing great, Hugh. Thank you for having me. And there's a lot going on around our country and in Virginia, so I'm thrilled to be with you.
Well, thank you for joining me. I want to begin by saying I invited you because I wanted to thank you publicly for your remarks at Virginia Tech when you did the Turning Point USA event with Megyn Kelly. They were straight from the heart. They were passionate, and young people needed to heed them. Did you have that on a teleprompter?
Hugh, it was an honor to be with those spectacular students. I got to be honest. I stood there in front of thousands and thousands and thousands of students and was really carried away with them. And I just so appreciate the opportunity to talk to them like I talk to my own kids. And, you know, they're the leaders of the future. And I wasn't kidding, Hugh, when I said the best answer I've heard to the question, who's going to be the next Charlie Kirk, is all of you. All of you. You are the light. And you need to stand up and be confident in your beliefs, because what you believe is truth. And we need you to lead. And I have to be honest, it was one of the most moving moments of the entire time I've had the privilege of serving as governor.
Well, I also got to say, you gave your Christian witness. I have talked to you 50 times. I've done a couple of live events with you and the First Lady, and we've talked about a number of things. I've never heard you tell that story. I laughed when you made your security detail hold hands, because the only good thing about COVID is in my Catholic church, we no longer hold hands during the Our Father. And in my Presbyterian church, we no longer shake hands. And I'm one of those guys that I couldn't be on your detail. But your witness was extraordinary. Have you done that before?
Yeah, I have. I am not constrained at all in talking about my faith. It's a huge part of who I am, and why I start every day in prayer, Hugh, is I know I need help. We have big decisions to make, and the promise of our Lord and Savior every day is, I am there with you, and that's why I start that way. And so, no, I am unabashed in proclaiming my faith, and I was just proud to have a chance to do it with all those students. I also think that a lot of folks ask the question, well, you know, how do you balance the separation of church and state? And the reality is I don't try to separate it. It's who I am. And every morning I come into work to go to work for 8.8 million Virginians and do the very best job I can do. And I do think that my faith is part of my ability to do what I do. And so I just think folks need to see that. And it's important that we had a chance in front of all those young folks to talk about the fact that Charlie Kirk spoke truth. Charlie Kirk stood for values, and he invited a civil discourse over these issues. And people disagreed with him, and he debated, but he did it with civility. He did it in a way that respected the fact that we're all created in the image of God. And that's one of the reasons why his assassination by that incredible evil heart is one of these wake-up moments for our entire nation and the world that says evil exists, and we've got to stand together in the face of it.
Now, Governor, for 2 years, since our elders and brothers and sisters in the Jewish faith were attacked on 10/7, right through yesterday when our friends in the LDS communion were attacked in Michigan. This is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's just evil is a walk in the land. Do you remember any time like this at all?
I don't. I will tell you, I've had the exact same recognition. And it's why I've also been incredibly vocal in first standing up for our freedom to express our faith in America. And listen, the Virginia Statute on Religious Freedom was written by Thomas Jefferson. It was the foundation for our First Amendment. And it's a reason that America is that we are allowed to express our religious beliefs, whether they're my beliefs or someone else's beliefs, and in a way that allows them to live their lives the way that they feel called to do so. And we have seen such violence against religious expression, and we've got to stop it. We stood strong on our college campuses and said, listen, you're allowed to protest, but if you are intimidating and interrupting and spitting and acting in a way that is completely against our foundation, then we're going to not let you do it. And if you continue to do it, we're going to arrest you. And that's what we had to do on our campuses. We're going to stand strong for our houses of worship, and that's why we have a grant fund that our houses of worship can tap into in order to secure themselves better. And I will continue to be a staunch protector of religious freedom in the United States of America and in Virginia.
Now, Governor, I'm on the road. I'll be back in time to vote early for Lieutenant Governor Sears, who is running to replace you. How do you see that race? I do not believe in polls. I think that there's a rebellion underway, and the shock of the last few months have got a lot of people thinking about, do we really want to put Spanberger in your office? How do you feel it's going?
Yeah, it's tightened up in a huge way over the course of the last couple weeks. And latest poll, and again, polls are polls, but has Winsome down 5, which is a huge improvement about where she was. And by the way, it's the same thing happened in my election in 2021. I was down all summer, and then it tightened up in September, and then I surged ahead in October. And I see the exact same thing happening here for so many of the same reasons, which is Virginians waking up and saying, wait a minute. First of all, I believe in economic prosperity. Winsome Sears has done that in the Youngkin administration in partnership with the governor. And Abigail Spanberger wants to get rid of right to work and force everybody to join a union. We believe in safe communities, and Winsome Sears has stood strong back in the blue. We've had a 30% reduction in murders, and Abigail Spanberger wants to turn Virginia into a sanctuary state. I mean, literally says she's going to undo my executive order to collaborate with the federal government. Winsome Sears stands strong with Virginians on the rights of parents to determine the best pathway for their children and to make sure that there aren't biological men in locker rooms and bathrooms with girls. Abigail Spanberger can't even answer the question. She dodges it every time because she actually supports boys and girls sports and men and girls locker rooms. It's crazy stuff. And this is why Virginians are waking up and saying there's no way that she can be our governor. And that's why the polls are tightening up so much. Jason Miyares, who is the best attorney general in America, is tied right now. And John Reed, who's stepping into the lieutenant governor's seat, is in the margin of error. This race is really tight, and that's why everybody's got to get out and vote.
So last question, Governor. The government's going to shut down because the Democrats are going to shut it down. They're going to keep us locked out for 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, maybe through the election. Will Virginians blame the Democrats if they work for the federal government, or will they blame the Republicans?
Well, they have to blame the Democrats because the Democrats are the ones shutting it down. It is a blatant political statement predominantly by Chuck Schumer, who's just trying to regain status in a party that has completely lost its way. And they voted 13 times, is what Leader Thune said today during the Biden administration, for clean CRs. And now they're going to shut down the federal government. They put forth the craziest asks. They're asking for $1.5 trillion of new spending. They're going to get rid of the biggest investment in rural health care, $50 billion that's ever been made in the Rural Health Care Transformation Fund. And they want to give free health care to illegals around the country. I mean, they are asking for crazy things. And that's why we have to stand together and recognize it is the Democrats shutting down the government. It hurts all of us, our federal workers in Virginia. And I think it's going to absolutely hurt Abigail Spanberger and the Democrat ticket. They should call Mark Warner and Tim Kaine and tell them to vote to keep the government open.
I agree. Governor Glenn Youngkin, always a pleasure. And again, thank you for your remarks at Virginia Tech. They were inspiring. Ty Lacader is back. Ty's a great sponsor of the program. I'm obliged to do my disclosures as I am every time he's on. Not only is he a sponsor, I'm an investor in Key City Capital, which is now LacaderCapital.com/U. In order to invest with LacaderCapital.com/U, you have to be an accredited investor, and you have to read the prospectus. And I'm obliged to tell you, you cannot join my fund. It's Fund 3. Maybe they've reopened Fund 3. I don't know. Ty, welcome. Have you reopened Fund 3?
We've got a pref equity piece that is opened in Fund 3 for a short period of time. So yes, we do have some openings in Fund 3.
I have to say that because my normal disclosures are you can't be in Fund 3, but something crossed my desk and I saw that they were taking a little extra money. However, you're doing a new fund. People read the prospectus about it. What do you make about the Fed and whether or not it's going to follow through with 2 or 3 cuts, Ty?
Well, I've made the assumption that it's not, and I actually took into consideration that it didn't even make the one that they made, I guess, 2 weeks ago now. That being said, we've seen the writing on the wall and everything that needed to take place. for the better part of 6 months now that would justify a rate cut, and we didn't see it. And so finally, when it came, I was relieved to see so. But I think we saw inflation take a short jump because of the tariffs that Trump enacted. However, I think we saw those to be a little bit more temporary than what was originally expected. We've seen a jobs market that is not in the position that we expected it to be based on the battle that Trump is pursuing at the border. So we've got a softening jobs market that we are going to have to see some rate cuts so that consumers start spending money and continue to spend money and have access to debt. That being said, Jay Powell has sat on his horse for as long as he has with where he has. So I wouldn't expect that we're going to see too much from him between now and the end of the year, but maybe a 0.5 point drop, maybe.
Now I want to tell everyone, if they're interested in becoming a limited partner in housing, in apartment complexes, you go to lacadercapital.com/Hugh, get the prospectus and read it. It's no muss, no fuss. You don't have to do anything. You get into real estate, you diversify into dirt without buying a rental, without buying an apartment complex. Ty handles all of that. He's got hundreds of investors that put his money with him in order to get that kind of diversification. How is interest as the market keeps going up, Ty? I just think it's very frothy, but I don't give investment advice.
Yeah, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal earlier today. Howard Marks, co-chair of Oak Tree Capital, was quoted as saying, look, we've got a really positive investment environment right now. And it's been that way for a long time with large amounts of money and a lot of optimism. What comes with that is high pricing and declining quality of investments. We are sitting on a stock market bust at this point. It is looming to happen at some point in the near future that's going to be similar to what I think we saw in the dot-com bust of the late 90s, early 2000s. We've got overpriced stocks, specifically overpriced in the technology sector and the pharmaceutical sector, and we're going to see a correction of those, especially as interest rates start to take an adjustment and developers and real estate operators start focusing on real estate again. And so what we're seeing right now is people moving chips off of the table while their earnings set high. They're taking those earnings out, leaving their original basis in place and looking to diversify in hard physical assets like real estate.
When they go to Lacader Capital, LASATER capital.com/Hugh, what will they find, Ty? They don't get, you don't promote. That's what I like. People come to you. You don't go to them. What do they find when they go there?
Yeah, what they find is the current opportunity that we're looking at right now. We've got a multifamily deal where a lender came to us and said, hey, we're stepping in. This operator doesn't have the liquidity to operate this asset. You guys are operating a large portfolio. You've borrowed from us before. We need somebody that knows what they're doing to step in and take this asset over. So we're basically getting what I always push for. We're getting huge equity in the beginning. We're buying in equity. We're getting an asset at a discount and an asset that's in the Dallas market that's appreciating in value. We won't have cash flow day one. We're going to see cash flow after about day 90 to day 120. We're going to put a little bit of work into the asset, not a whole lot. It's already stabilized at about 85% occupancy. We'll hit it up to 90%. We'll start seeing cash flow. And then we'll take advantage of those tax efficiencies that come with investing in real estate, and we'll hold that asset for 4 or 5 years.
LacaderCapital.com/Hugh. LASATER capital.com/Hugh. Ty, always good to check in with you. You know, on Fridays we do the Friday football forecast with Doug Lesmerises of the Bill and Doug Show, which is one of college football's very best shows. And on Monday we cover the magic and the misery in the aftermath of the weekend. Doug, welcome. Doug Lesmerises. I was going to say, I thought Ohio State had a really great weekend until I listened to you and Bill and then Stefan and Steven. Now I guess they lost. I don't know what happened.
Oh, no. That's a good win at Washington. Broke a 22-game home winning streak for the Washington Huskies. I think Washington's good. And Ohio State's defense totally shut Washington down. So good win, Hugh. Good win.
Have you listened to Stefan and Steven yet, though? They're afraid that the offense is boring and conservative. And I think it's just offense A, and they're not going to show offense B until Michigan.
Yeah, it is. And there's like a playoff offense, too, that Ohio State does. It's hard for Ohio State fans to get into this. They have such talent, Hugh, that people want to see it all the time. They want to see him throwing down the field. They have the best receiver in college football, and Jeremiah Smith. But this is I've called it a mature version of football for Ohio State. They're the #1 team in the country, and they're playing very composed.
So who has the magic and who has the misery today?
Yeah, so magic in college is Ole Miss right now, Hugh. Ole Miss moved to 5-0 with a win over LSU on Saturday. Ole Miss is up to #4 in the country. And Ole Miss has been a program that has been aiming at the college football playoff since we got to this playoff system. And they haven't gotten there yet. But they have a transfer quarterback from Division II, Hugh. That's a step down. Division II Ferris State won the national championship last year. Their quarterback, Trinidad Chambliss, moved to Ole Miss, was the backup quarterback. The starter got hurt. He's playing awesome. People are thinking about the playoff for Ole Miss. They have Georgia in a couple weeks on the road, Oklahoma in a couple weeks, but right now they're super excited, and they should be.
I heard you and Bill talking about Trinidad and the fact that no one had spotted him when they were scouting some O-lineman or something like that. Is he the real deal? Can he chunk it around the yard?
Yeah, no, this is one of those, Hugh, and it's reassuring to guys like me who talk into a microphone for a living when the people who are in charge also don't know everything. How do coaches miss a guy like this? He quarterbacked the Division II national champs, and nobody was talking about him before the season. The Ole Miss had a good young quarterback people were fired up about, but sometimes a guy just needs an opportunity. He's throwing for 300 yards a game. He's in the Heisman discussion. It's really exciting for that fan base.
All right, misery. Who is misery? I think I know the answer to this, but let's talk about Penn State anyway.
Is it Penn State? Is it Penn State? It's hard to be miserable, Hugh. I try to guide fans sometimes. Penn State played a very competitive game at home, went to double overtime. Penn State was trailing 17-3. Penn State scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to tie it. That's exciting. They rallied. They came back. And then they lost in double overtime on a pretty bad interception to a good Oregon team. As we talked on Friday, James Franklin, the head coach, was 4-20 against top 10 teams. Now he's 4-21. And people have questions about Penn State. It's hard, Hugh. The standard is high. This was a team people were talking about for the national championship. Oregon, who beat them, people should be talking about them for the national championship, but Penn State fans are not happy, right? The Penn State fans, they would agree with the misery.
Would any other program have fired their head coach by now if they? I think he's sort of like Cooper, right? John Cooper could never win the big game. Would they have ever fired him? Would anyone else keep him this long?
It's really hard, Hugh. It's like, what is your standard? I think one of the most difficult things in college football is to determine what is your standard. And Joe Paterno, what he established at Penn State, right? Is that what the standard should be now? The game has changed. Are you going to get the best players in the country to go to a rural setting in the mountains of Pennsylvania? Does Penn State demand to be a national championship level program? Or you know what? Is making the playoff, winning 10 games a year, being really good, is that okay? Standards are hard, Hugh. He's too good to get fired, but if they don't get over the top at some point, we're talking like mutual parting of the ways kind of thing, right? But there's a lot of frustration in Happy Valley right now.
All right, I saved it for last. I watched every minute of the Ohio State game. Washington is good. Their quarterback is good. Their receivers are good. Do they make it into the playoffs because they're that good and they lost to us?
It's interesting. Ohio State, sometimes it's very hard to determine opponents based on Ohio State because you could be really good and Ohio State can shut you down. Washington goes to Maryland on Saturday, undefeated Maryland. I'm really curious to watch Washington. Will their offense be electric again? If it is, then they've got a shot. Washington gets Illinois at home. They get Oregon at home at the end of the year. They definitely could win one of those two games. And if Washington's 10-2 with 2 good losses and that electric offense, yeah, I think they could be in the playoff discussion. But now I need a reset on how good they are.
All right, now my last question. The first 3 OSU players off the board in April.
In April. So the hard part of this is Jeremiah Smith, the great receiver who most people think is the best player in college football, is a sophomore. Yeah. So he can't go anywhere. He has to come back. Caleb Downs, their safety, is probably the best defensive player in college football. He's a first-round pick. And then their 2 linebackers are both, I think, playing like first-round picks. Sonny Styles, people know him, but Arvell Reese from Glenville, part of that Ted Ginn Sr., Troy Smith is from there. Ted Ginn Jr., the great players of Cleveland, Hugh, that have fortified this Ohio State program. Arvell Reese at linebacker is the latest, and he's playing as well as any linebacker in the country.
What about their left tackle? He's a monster.
Austin Sareveld. I was looking, Hugh, pressures. That's right. That's when it's not necessarily a sack, but when you let a defensive player get after your quarterback. The only tackle in the Big Ten to allow 0 pressure so far this season is Austin Sareveld, the left tackle for Ohio State, another homegrown Ohio kid playing amazing.
He could go up to the Browns right now. You know, the Browns signed Thayer Mumford last week off the Colts, off the Ravens practice squad. Do you think he's got NFL talent?
He's been around. He was a lifesaver for Ohio State for 4 years, Thayer Munford. Not the prototypical length and size you would expect from a tackle, but he has to replace DeJuan Jones, who's another Ohio State guy who does have that typical length and size, who got hurt. He's a grinder. Thayer Munford's a grinder. He's got a shot.
Okay, watch for him next week. Doug Lesmerises, thank you. We will do the Friday football forecast with you on Friday. I always appreciate this, a little lightness to end the week. Don't go anywhere, America. I'll come back and give you one more story today. You can find Doug at his Substack podcast with Bill and Doug Show, OSU. It's heavy on the Buckeyes, but it covers all of college football in a way that makes it execrable for all of us, meaning even I can understand it. I want to close with a very big story. YouTube has agreed. YouTube, which means Alphabet, which means Google. YouTube has agreed to pay $24.5 million to settle a lawsuit filed by President Donald Trump after he was suspended from the social media platform following the January 6, 2021. CNN uses the word insurrection. It was a riot. This makes Alphabet-owned YouTube the last of the big 3 social media companies sued by Trump, which include Meta and then Twitter, now called X, to settle over his removal from their platform. YouTube will pay $22 million to settle the claims made by Trump to the nonprofit Trust for the National Mall, which is, quote, dedicated to restoring, preserving, and elevating the National Mall to support the construction of the White House State Ballroom, according to a court document. The social media company will also pay $2.5 million to settle with other plaintiffs, such as the nonprofit American Conservative Union. YouTube directed CNN to the court document when asked for comment. I was kind of hoping it was going to go to the Trump library. My interview with Eric Trump, which includes a lot about the library, the Trump library, Dwayne has transcribed and posted over at hughhewitt.com. The YouTube video is also up of Eric and I talking about his brand new book, Under Siege, about the lawfare waged against his family. Been a great, great interview. I hope it travels far and wide. Send it to everyone. He's very succinct about what they went through and what they're going to do. And then, of course, we can't close the show without playing cut number 1 again.
And then blast it deep to right, down the line, off the pole. Can you believe it?
Oh, I got to warn you. The Guardians are playing at 1 o'clock tomorrow. I come on at 3. There may be mood swings involved. There may be spontaneous explications that happen. I'm aware of my FCC rules, right? I won't say anything bad, I don't think. But it's it may be in the corner of my eye over here that the Guardians are playing, and Gavin Williams going tomorrow. against Skubal, who's the Tigers Cy Young Award winner, who's got to have, he smashed David Fry's face in last time he was in Cleveland, so that's got to bother him. Very classy guy, though. Skubal went over to Cleveland Clinic to see Fry, who is home and back. So relieffactor.com. I need it for tomorrow. I need it for all week. Don't forget, 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief. 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief. Why do you need it if you're just a fan? Well, fans do things like jump up and down. Fans do things like scream and shout. Fans make sudden motion. Those can all cause minor aches and pains. That's what Relief Factor is for. I've taken it for a dozen years. The only supplement I've taken for more than 20. Cost $19.95, less than $1 a day to try it for 3 weeks. Call 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief. Or go to their website and say, I'm a sports fan. I think I need Relief Factor. Get your miles in, but don't put up with the pain. ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com.